Hey yo, let's start learning some HTML. But before we jump in, we need a program that we can write HTML inside of. So let's talk about our first tool. In order to actually build web pages, we will need to create HTML documents. As you've seen before, this can be done across a lot of tools and programs. The industry name for whatever you build HTML is called an IDE, which stands for Integrated Development Environment. That's just a very fancy name for somewhere I can write some code inside of. There are many different text editors and IDEs you can choose from. You can find some that are paid, some that are free. Choosing an IDE is always a matter of personal preference. The more time you spend in the industry and you do more, you find your own personal preferences. Some have tons of plugins and tools, and others are just plain text editors. You have to try it out and choose for yourself. For this tutorial though, we will be using Visual Studio Code. The main reason for this is that it's a free tool. It's also backed up by Microsoft. It's very customizable. The community has tons of plugins and integrations with it, and the editor will help us develop easier later down the line. So the first thing we're going to do is download Visual Studio Code. Go to Google and search for Visual Studio Code. If you're using Windows or anything else, just go to Google, search for Visual Studio Code. The first entry is the browser. I'm going to download it for Mac. And once you download it, just install it. Once we've finished downloading the code, I'm just going to unzip it. And you see I have the application for Visual Studio Code. Just going to drag it into applications. In my case, I already have it installed. I'm going to close this. If you have Windows, just follow the installer and make sure that you can run Visual Code. Now we have our IDE. We have our opening screen right here. What I want you to do is maybe go to your desktop, create a new folder, call it project, and then go back to Visual Studio and click Open Folder. I'm just going to click Project and Open. The Visual Studio will open on this project. I can full screen it and we can see all this information on the left. Basically, I want to go to Project and right here to New File, and I'm going to call it index.html. All right, so we have a working studio where we can code. We learned XML before. Now let's start HTML. XML and HTML were designed with different goals in mind. So XML was designed to carry data with focus on what data is. HTML was designed to actually display data with focus on how data looks, since the browser actually needs an HTML to render the page. XML tags are not predefined. Like we saw in our examples, we can use them for anything, whether it is to describe a note or a dog or whatever we want, but HTML tags are predefined. So in our case, if I give the browser an HTML with a format of dog, he's not going to render anything since he does not know what dog is. The same will happen if I try to give it note. These were examples we made up in order to use XML, but the browser only understands HTML. HTML was actually created by Sir Tim Berners-Lee in the late 1991, also known as the father of the internet, but was not released officially until later in a few years. HTML is a very evolving markup language and has evolved with various versions updating, which means it's very dynamic. It looks different from each year to each year. HTML elements are the building blocks of HTML pages, with HTML constructs, images, and other objects such as interactive forms. They all may be embedded into the rendered page. HTML provides a means to create structured documents by denoting structural semantics for text such as headings, paragraph, lists, link, quotes, and other items. HTML elements are delineated by tags written using angle brackets, like we've learned, and tags such as div or p surround and provide information about document text and may include other tags as sub-elements. Browsers do not display the HTML tags, they just use them to render the HTML content itself. So with all that being said, let's jump and write in a quick example. But before we write an HTML page, I just want to show you something. Suppose I take our example from before of bingo and I paste it in here and I save this XML that we made up as HTML. And now I go back to my desktop, I go back to my folder and I run it. As you can see, the browser displayed a white page with bingo, scratch and roll, and WAF. So what happened here? How did we actually get to see content when I said that it's in invalid HTML? Before I touch that, I just want to stop and congratulate you. You've just built your very own first page which renders in the browser. So congratulations. Now, what exactly happened here? When I say the browser rendered this, I meant Google Chrome for desktop, because that's actually the browser we're using. But if I render this with a different browser, I don't know, Safari or Mozilla or anything else on a different platform, like a PC or iPhone, I couldn't be sure what will happen. When I render incorrect content, each browser is basically free to do whatever it wants. And to understand why this, let's go back in time a little bit to the 90s again. The internet was not yet mature enough to have strong standards, and competing companies worked on competing products really fast, and this caused the coders and the people who build websites themselves to have many errors in their documents. Sometimes even worse, you could have a website which was working on one browser but fails on another due to browsers compatibility issues and error. This is why browsers are meant to be resilient. And this is why actually this Google Chrome rendered some content. It tried to do the best with what it could. Unlike desktop or mobile apps, which run apps that are tested and installed on your device, your browser is meant to be able to run millions and millions and millions of applications with just a few keystrokes. So they are able to run programs even if they are a little funky. And this used to make the internet, the web, a very hostile environment to coding. Today, everything is a lot better. There are many standards and rules that are enforced, which means we don't have to worry about as much as this cross-compatibility stuff anymore as we did back in the days. Jumping back to HTML. We said HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. HTML is a standard markup language for creating web pages. HTML describes the structure of a web page. HTML consists of a series of elements. HTML elements tell the browsers how to display the content, and HTML tags are predefined. That's the most important part coming from our XML templates. And what do I mean by predefined? Let's go over the very, very, very basic tags first you're going to see. The first one, usually at the top, is a doc type. It's a declaration that defines this document as an HTML5 document. You don't have to worry about this tag, and you don't even have to write this tag initially. I just wanted you to notice that if you go somewhere online or find a template, you will usually see this, and I want you to understand what this is. As you can see, it's written a bit different than the other tags, but because it's meant to be only once in the top of the document, and the only thing it does is define what this document is going to be. Usually a browser will guess it's HTML, so right now we're not going to worry about this. The second tag is HTML, which is a basic element. It's the root element of an HTML page. Everything else we're going to write is going to be wrapped inside this tag. Now, let's open two more tags. Head, which is going to be the top, and body, which is going to come right after it. When the browser receives your HTML and renders it, it would render the head first, do all the stuff that the head says, and only when it's finished rendering or downloading scripts or everything that is supposed to happen in the head, it will then go to the body, which is the document itself. In body, will say, hello, world. This is an HTML document. Body. And in the head, we're going to learn one more special tag that we're going to use now called title. The title element specifies a title for the HTML page. It is shown in the browser's title bar on the progress page. In our case, let's say our cool app. I'm going to save this and I'm going to go back to the browser, refresh. And as you can see, I can see our cool app up in the title, and I can see the content we wrote for our HTML page. Okay, so we have a working HTML page. That's pretty damn impressive. Why don't we take this opportunity and add a few more HTML tags? Before we do, I want to talk about this a bit, since there's a few tricky points, important things about HTML and specific tags. If you search Google for, say, I don't know, let's go to Google and search for HTML tags. I'll go to the first entry to the three schools. And here I can see an HTML tags ordered alphabetically. The good news is there are tons of tags. The bad news is there are tons of tags. Don't worry too much about it. You don't have to use all the tags, and certainly not remember all of them. Once we start building actual useful content, you will see the process of selecting and finding tags and looking for references. For the meantime, just don't worry about it. Let's just try and build some basic page. The first tag I'm going to look at is a p paragraph. Remember, to write a tag, I'm going to start with an opening bracket, click a p, and then close it. And then the IDE automatically places a closing tag right after it. I can click enter, and then I can put staff in between. So I'm gonna write here is a very short, cool paragraph of text. The big fox jumped. Here is a paragraph. This is cool. We can maybe add 2 more paragraphs. And as you can see, it's really, really important to keep my page nice, clean, indented properly. So if I click enter and I open a new tag, any tag, let's say another P, and then I close it, the editor, like we said, would place the closing one automatically. If I click enter, then I'm going to be indented a space inside the P tag, which means if I go back here and I type a line, then this line is not properly indented. Now, remember we said the computer doesn't care how you write your text or how you structure your pages. Anything which is a proper structure of HTML, the computer can read, but it's not very sure that you will be able to read. So make sure you use nice clean indents. Use tab to push your line forward, shift tab to take your line back, and you could also do this for multiple lines. If I click all of them and then shift tab, they will be sent back, and if I click tab, they will be sent forward. Pretty cool. Okay, so let's learn one more cool thing. There is another specific type of tag which is never closed. This looks like this. These tags are a bit special. They are the same as the HTML tags we used, but they don't have a closing tag to partner up. This is since they will never have any content. They don't need to be an opening tag and a closing tag, since there is no need to ever place anything between them. So they are what is called automatically closed or self-closing tags in our case. There are a few of them. Here we use a tag called BR, which is short for break, which is just gonna break the line. Let's run our page again, go to your project folder, open it, go to your index.html. If you can't find it, right click here on your file and type reveal in Finder or Explorer if you're using Windows. And once you're in this file, double click it and it will open it in the browser. Well, you can't see anything, obviously, since we haven't saved the page. But right now, if I refresh it, then I can see all the lines, including the first line, which is break, where I wrote the break. As you can see, the tags themselves are not rendered. They are just used for rendering. Now, let's try another cool one, like maybe HR tag. HR tag is a horizontal ruler. It's also a self-closing tag, so because it will never have any content. Let's see how it looks. We have a beautiful long line in our page. And 2 more tags, which I want you to look at. One is span. Hello, dude. And the other is div. And inside my div, I will also place our paragraph text. Span and div are both very common tags. You will see them a lot and you will use them a lot while programming HTML. Span is just used for simple text, which is inline, and we're gonna see why. And div is used for almost anything when you want to structure a page and you need a box. They appear and they look cool. Now, let's do a few more. Also very useful one is the H, and as you can see, the autocomplete of the IDE shows me H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. These are headers. I can do H1 for the largest, biggest header, and I could do H2 for this is also a header. Let's just copy paste this a few times, right? Oh, we have all these beautiful headers in different sizes and shapes. Really, really cool. Maybe I can have a tag called footer, and I can place my footer here. And maybe I can place one at the top called header. I can say, this is my header. Now let's refresh the page. We have a header, we have a footer, and we get the basic idea. We already have an HTML page, which has a lot of specific tags that we search for. Now, here comes one of the most important things about the majority of HTML tags, and which are also one of the hardest things to understand. I've seen people who have been web developers for a few years that still don't understand this basic concept. So try and hear me out. I can take a div tag or a p tag or a span tag and have them look the same. Even in our case, if we look at the div tag with the sentence and we look at the p tag with the sentence, so here I'm going to place a p right above my div, okay? And if I go back here, you can see that I can barely tell the difference between them. So if so many tags look the same, what exactly is the point of having these names? Most HTML tags are just different by name and the initial attributes that the browser will give them, which means their main difference is only semantic. Most tags, the main difference would be for human eyes, yourself or other people reading your code, not the browser, with small exceptions we will discuss later. Obviously, there are also tags like video or image or stuff which have difference because they have functionality, but most tags are used for structure, which means it's your responsibility to structure your page properly, and it's your responsibility to pick the correct tags you want. And it's your responsibility to keep your page nice, organized, and readable. And once we learn more about styling, which we will, we'll discuss this more thoroughly. Now let's learn one more basic concept, woohoo, since we're already here, and it's called, drumrolls, attributes. Attributes are basically additional information and explanations about a tag. They exist both in XML and HTML. And just like tags themselves, for XMLs you can use anything you want in attributes, whatever you want to describe your data, while in HTML you have a predefined set of attributes for a specific tag. And remember, all HTML elements can have attributes. Attributes provide additional information about the elements, and attributes are always specified in the start, in the opening tag. Attributes are in the shape of a name and a value. So the first thing would be the name of the attribute, and then equal sign, and then the value. So let's see how it works. Remember, we had this beautiful XML where inside we had a dog, and then we decided to insert it a name, and we called it Bingo, right? This is a very nicely structured XML, but I could decide that I don't want this tag. I don't think it should be a tag. I should be an attribute of a dog, which is name equals Bingo. So as you can see of the formatting, it sits on the opening tag before the closing bracket at the end of it, and it comes in the format of the attribute name, in our case it's also name, I hope it's not confusing, equals, in quotes, Bingo, the value of the attribute. So now you might be wondering, why would I use this or the other? Why would I choose to have name equals Bingo or have a tag inside of name, which is the value Bingo? Well, the first answer, if you're asking this about XML, where you're not asking the right question. Remember, we said XML has no functionality. It just carries data. So in our case, whatever you think makes more sense to structure your data, just pick whatever you think is cleaner or which fits your needs more. But in HTML, both the set of tags and the attributes for each tag are set. So now we can try to use them, and let's also cover a few new super useful tags if we're already on it. Remember a web page, let's try to add a link to it. A link, let's maybe place this inside the header. So I'm gonna clear the content of the header. I'm gonna break a new line. And then the link tag is called anchor, which is being written as an A. Right here, I can place a link to an external website. So go to my secret website. But an anchor tag needs a special attribute called href. Href should place inside quotes where you want this anchor to go. In our case, let's just redirect it to some random website. If I refer to the page now, as you can see, in my header, I have go to my secret website, and when I click it, I am being redirected to Google, which is exactly what we want. I can also place another new tag on top of it called target, and then set this to blank. And if I refresh now and I click my link, then Google opens, but in a new tab, which means the target is an explanation for the anchor tag of where I want to open this link or where I want to target. In our case, it would be a blank new tab. And you're probably asking, well, how the hell did you know that you have this href tag and you have this target tag and you have a blank on it or Google on it? We already have Google on it, so let's look for a anchor tag HTML or something similar. This would probably send us to the documentation of the A tag in HTML. And here you can see definition and usage, tips and notes. You can see stuff here. Here is the href, the URL, specify the URL, the page link, and much more stuff you can put on the anchor tag. We're already starting to understand how would we want to use this. So now let's see another cool tag, which is also a self-closing tag, but it needs attribute. And it's also a very useful tag called image. What page would not want images? So as you can see, I opened it and close it right away since there is no content in the image. So you're asking, how would the image find the image itself? It has an attribute called source. And in this source, I will place in quotes the URL of an image. So let's go back to searching for an image. Can maybe go to dog images. Let me copy the image address, place it in the src, and refresh our page. Bam! We also have an image. What a beautiful page. All right, good job. So we learned about attributes, self-closing tags. We have a super styled, pretty image on our page. And now it's time to bring out the big guns. We're going to learn how to style.